Oh, hey buddy, it's your old pal Scott, and this is Let's Talk Tabletop. I did a video a couple months ago about some lost characters from Warhammer, and that one was focused exclusively on old metal miniatures of characters that no longer have a miniature or stats in 40k. Now, this new list, this new video includes a couple fantasy battle characters, and I really dove into this and found some characters that I'd never seen before, and a couple of them I actually owned and had no idea they were a named character, which is kind of funny. So let's dive into it and see if you can recognize all of these characters. My disclaimer for this video is I am not a lore person, so I Google it and I look on Lexicanum or I look on Wikipedia or whatever. And like in the case of Tycho, the information was like 100% wrong about that character in the last video, and a lot of people were nice enough to correct me on that. And again, I'm just going by what's online. Some of these characters I do know, some of them I don't, but I'm not a lore person. So we are really just looking at the miniature and how cool they are and getting a little snippet of what their background is. And of course, you can look it up yourself for further information. The first model is someone I'd never heard of before until it was suggested in the comments section of the last video. Tyberos is this guy right here. He is in some fantastic Terminator armor from Forge World, and he's got these really awesome claws, like lightning claws, that are just hooked and just really, really neat looking. He's part of the Carcharodon faction, the Shark Space Marines, essentially, from Forge World. Now, he's no longer made, but he's still beloved by a lot of people. The neat thing about him is that he's basically never depicted not in his Terminator armor. And the few times that we actually see his face, half of his face is all bony and gaunt like it's missing its flesh, which is pretty cool. And his eyes are completely black. There's no whites at all. And they're described as soulless. So he's just a real nasty dude. And apparently he just cuts a bloody swath through the battlefield with his claws. Very cool model. If I had a Space Marine army, I might actually consider getting him just for a captain. It's pretty cool. I'm going to struggle with names this entire video. This is Donnie Allanti, or Donnie Allanti from Necromunda. This is another character suggested to me whom I'd never heard of, but in my last video, I discovered Cruella, which was a character I'd heard of, but I never saw the model, and I had to go get the model because I fell in love with it. And this is a mass brutality Warhammer army, so it's not necessarily for Warhammer, but it's for mass brutality. And she's going to lead my pirate Drakari, so I'm pretty excited. Well, unfortunately, thanks to you guys, I've fallen in love with another model, and I'm going to have to get her. I haven't looked up her price just yet, but it's Donnie Allanti from the House Allanti in Necromunda. She's definitely got like Harley Quinn vibes going on. Obviously, you could paint her however you wanted, but with the pigtails and the colorful paint scheme and all of that, I'm definitely going to make her a witch or probably a succubus for my pirate army. Anyway, she's really cool. Apparently, she was the daughter of the patriarch for the House Allanti in Necromunda. And apparently, what they have to do is they often like arrange marriages between the houses for power and stuff like they did in medieval times. And she was locked up in this really tall tower and for ages because he wanted to keep her like, you know, pristine for her wedding or whatever that she was betrothed to. And so she apparently was going insane up there because she was never allowed to go outside. And then rumor has it that her dad was going in there and torturing her or whatever. So essentially she's crazy. And if you think about it, that's even more of a Harley Quinn connection there. And so they had this big dinner with her husband-to-be. And they ate the first 3 courses of the meal. And on the 4th one, she reaches over very feminine-like and takes like a silver fork and gouges the guy's eye out. And I believe she killed him, but I could be wrong there. But then she ends up escaping and leading a Necromunda gang, which is freaking awesome. And even though she's not an elf, I'm just going to paint her like an elf or a Drakari, and she's going to be one of my succubus. So I'm pretty excited about that. This is a Warhammer Fantasy Battle character, Orion the Forest King, and it's Orion. And this is a really neat backstory. I never played much of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I only had a Vampire Count army for a brief time. And this model is really cool. He's coming with his two familiars there. And apparently, he is like the god of the forest, and he actually lives with the seasons. So he's rebirthed every spring, and he dies every winter, and it's just really cool. It's some really neat lore involved with that. He was part of the Wood Elves army. And what's even neater is that in the spring, when he's going to be reborn, Ariel, I think, is his wife's name, and she has to basically recreate her husband. So they get a sacrifice of a young prince from the Wood Elves, and he becomes the new vessel for this King Orion. And if I do a forest-themed, I already have a Sylvaneth army, I may actually get this model and use it in Mass Brutality again, because it's a really cool model. I don't exactly know what his familiars do, but still a really neat model. This next model is very well known. I never owned him, but it's Al-Rahim, if I'm pronouncing that properly, from Imperial Guard. And the one thing I thought was interesting is that Al-Rahim is actually the title carried by two different Imperial Guard captains. And it says the connection is unknown, whether they're like brothers or what. But two different people went by this name. And his history is so long. Both of their histories are so long. It's way too much to get into here, and I would probably do it a disservice. But he's a really cool Talarn character from Imperial Guard, and just a really neat character. He's got a lot of swagger there, if you look at him with the sunglasses and everything. But anyway, he's a really cool model, and you could do a really cool paint scheme with him. Definitely use him as a commissar or something in your army now if you wanted. This next model is someone that I've been looking at for forever, and I've never pulled the trigger on him. His name is Uriah Jacobus, and he's basically a priest for the Imperium. And essentially, he goes to planets that they're just making contact with again, the human planets. And he teaches them about the Emperor, and basically it's like, hey, follow our religion or die, essentially. And it was a really neat story, though, and I'm not gonna do it perfect service, but he went to a planet and found that they were worshipping a four-armed god, and he was like, hold up, I think that's a gene stealer. So he went to the local planets that he'd already, converted to the Imperium, and was like, hey, we need to team up and kill these people. So that's what they did. They teamed up, and sure enough, there were gene stealers. His cavalry and all of that seems like he was using some pretty low tech. And his cavalry were ambushed by literal gene stealers. And it's a pretty cool story if you want to check it out. But he is such a great character. He's got so much attitude, and he's screaming, and he's got the shotgun, and he's going to have to end up in a Brutality Warband or something, because he's just such a cool model. I did not find out what army he used to be part of. Probably Agents of the Imperium, I'm assuming. But he could also be, someone in Sisters of Battle now if you wanted. But anyway, really cool model, and I did actually know about him. This next guy is from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and from my favorite faction in WFB, and that's Vampire Counts. This guy's name is Dieter Helsnick, and he's basically a vampire wizard. He's riding his goofy-looking manticore here, but, it's goofy, but doesn't it have charm? It really does. Like, I love these old metal hand-sculpted models. They definitely have charm. And, but anyway, he was basically constantly laughing to himself for no reason and talking to himself. And he's a powerful wizard, but he no longer exists in the canon. And it's just really cool. Vampire wizard. Actually, I had the model of him. Just the model. I didn't have the manticore. I got that in a lot somewhere. And I liked the model, but I had no idea that it was a named character or anything like that. So that's kind of neat to find out. Unfortunately, didn't come with the manticore. Of course, everybody knows this next character and this next character. Same guy, different models. But Commissar Yarick of the Imperial Guard. Of course, everybody knows him. And honestly, to go into his backstory is a little bit pointless, because he's got a very long history of things he's done in the Imperium. And everyone usually knows his involvement in the War of Armageddon and taking the Power Claw from the War Boss and his beef with Gazskull and all of that. So people say he's dead, but a lot of people online hold out their hope that he's not actually dead, and he's still out there kicking around, licking his wounds. Maybe he's got 2 Power Claws now, and he's going to be coming back. We'll see. Maybe it'll get the Creed treatment and it's his one-armed daughter or something. Who knows? But anyway, really cool model. Of course, the more modern model here is way cooler looking than the old one, but darn it, like I've said before, the old model has so much charm. What kind of weird crab claw power fist is that? A power claw. Like, it's such a weird thing, but I love it, and it's got a lot of personality. I never had the newer model. I had the older model, and I just love it to death. And this last one is someone that I had no knowledge of until someone mentioned him in the comment section of the last video. And it's a Warhammer Fantasy Battle model, and this is my favorite model for the backstory. Actually, my favorite model of this entire video is definitely the Necromunda Princess. Like, I'm gonna have to buy her. She's gonna be awesome. But this guy is also really, really cool. Judging by the lore, I'm really impressed that they actually improved or changed a character over time. So he started out as Eltharion the Grim, which is a high elf character. And you see him, he's on his mount here, and he's a pretty imposing guy. I had this model from a lot. I had no idea who he was. He wasn't attached to his griffin. So I've got a griffin, and I've got this dude, and I have no idea they go together because there's a lot of other stuff in the lot. So that's really cool. I had him and had no idea. But his story is really, really neat, and he changes over time. So originally, Eltharion is this guy, and he's badass, and he's, you know, kicking butt everywhere, and he's a high elf guy. Eventually, and I'm paraphrasing, he gets captured by the witch elves, and he gets tortured by the witch elves, and, you know, a little demented in the head after all that torture, and they blind him. They pluck his eyes out. And instead of Eltharion the Grim, he becomes this model, Eltharion the Blind. And that is so cool that they would actually take a character and make them change over time because of narrative purposes. That is something I love, and I wish they would do it more often. Games in general, of showing two different versions of somebody. But anyway, he is really, really cool, and the backstory of him being tortured and blinded and becoming Eltharion the Blind is so cool to me. So, I also really like the model. I actually like the model of him blinded a lot better than I do the one on the Griffin, just because, I don't know, it's got so much motion to it, you know, it's a really cool model. Actually, I thought it was a woman at first, but anyway, apparently it's not. Thank you so much for watching, and I would love for more suggestions. I already have a list for a third video that I'll eventually get to. I don't want to just pump these out every week. I have other video topics I want to discuss, but this is really fun, and I'm discovering so many characters I did not know existed, and this is really, really cool. I just found a treasure trove of Warhammer Fantasy Battle characters, and it's going to be a cool video. I'll probably do a video of just WFB characters. So, thank you to all my beautiful, sexy, good-smelling Patreon patrons for supporting the channel. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing. I will see you on the next one. And tell me in the comments, who was your favorite? For me, it's got to be the Necromunda Queen.